Hello guys, David Vos here. Oh buddy, we got some awesome content for you today. You see that? The Arcereth. That's it. And guess what? Oh, Dan and Naphtali. The tribes of Dan and Naphtali. We found them. Holy moly, woly, woly. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I'm having a wonderful day here in Alabama. And boy, am I anxious to get into this one and show you the history books we've uncovered. Oh, buddy, it's going to be so amazing. Yep, even Reuben might be up in there. Oh, boy, can't wait to show you what I've got. I've been aware of some of this history, but I hadn't really read it that much. But it conforms and coincides and confirms what we've been saying about Dan. And so we've got some more information about Dan, where the old boy went. And yeah, you see that? It's up there in the north and up by Russia, and it's called Esarath. And yeah, we're going to find out a lot of stuff about the old tribe of Dan and Naphtali. Oh, buddy, just can't wait to show you the evidence we have for you today. Yeah, and then they had they built a New Jerusalem over here and crossed the Bering Strait and went to America. Wait till you see it. Oh, we got so much to talk about today, friends. Well, let's get started. So, go around the globe here to that location. There's Japan right there. So this is the Bering Strait. This is Alaska. Okay? So where is that big chunk of land going straight up? Well, now there's that big chunk of land I'm talking about. If you focus in, you see that's that map. That's Naphtali and Dan. That's where they went. Look at that chunk going up in there like that, away from Russia up in there. Well, you probably saw maps like this. There's quite a few of these kind of maps, and they'll show Thule in the center at the North Pole. And they give this weird mapping, like, what is that? I don't think the continents have ever been in that shape. Like, that's a weird kind of map. And there's 4 rivers that go out. It's like the Garden of Eden, where the 4 rivers went flowing out from Eden. And so people have thought it's some Shambhala that they talk about in Mongolia. Oh, Mongolia, right? Shambhala, the great city, the city of Zion, the glory of all the earth, and the remotest parts of the north, the Bible says. But then remember what Madame Blavatsky said about Hyperborea, which was a place before Atlantis. Well, they placed Hyperborea, this is where we get the Borean, or the Aurora Borealis. It's the place of the north. The furthest north, above, in the north, Zion, Mount Zion. Well, where is this coming from? Well, friends, we've known all along. We've got history. I have found the histories of where all the children of Israel went. And Dan went to the specific place that we will identify today. And today is the Germanic tribes. But the other tribes that are not Dan went to Africa and to America and to China and to Australia and to many other places around the world, India or whatever. And we'll show that, and this is going to be a long series. We're going to do a lot of investigation and find where, track all the tribes and where they went and restore this ancient wisdom. This is the regathering of Israel, friends, what we're doing right now. We're restoring the lost knowledge back to the tribes, the restoration of all things spoken of by the mouth of all the holy prophets. And Elijah shall return and bring back the hearts of the fathers towards their sons. And bring back, and they shall whisper out of the ground, Joseph Smith said. He started the whole ball rolling when he received the keys of the priesthood and opened up with those keys that he was given the restoration work and the regathering of the tribes and their knowledge. And he translated the Native American Book of Mormon and other stuff that we've talked about. So what is this Hyperborea? Well, I have said there's a wormhole at the North Pole, and you can go through, and it's another dimension. But I don't want to get into much of that today. I just want to show you that there may have been actual land masses that look like that at one time. Notice below Hyperborea, there's a little landmass that has that same shape. What is it? Elixokia. Well, that seems to be, in this case, it's a little disconnected with Russia. But the green color on the right side obviously represents, Canada and, the North America and that. And then the orange, or kind of yellowish orange on the left side would be Asia, and that's Russia. So north of Russia, sure enough, we've got this orange little thing where Dan and Naphtali went, and it goes all the way up to the North Pole, Greenland. See, that's the shape of that little piece of land that we're talking about, just up there in Tartaria, up there in Asia or Russia. See, that's that shape. And of course, that's where Dan and Naphtali went, way up in that little pointy piece of land going north towards the North Pole. You see how it goes directly to the north. The North Pole, the Arctic Circle, goes straight up. Well, look at that area below Greenland. You see that mark? There could have been some land there at one time, right? And it goes to a landmass that is called Thule. Well, there's actually a town. You write in Thule, North Pole, and it takes you here. Mount Thule. And that is not far from this little Greenland right here. But if you write in Thule, Greenland, it's right there. I know on some maps it actually shows a town called Thule in Greenland. But now, remember that little chunk of land that looked like where Dan and Naphtali went? Notice that right in the location where that landmass was, there's an actual indentation under the ocean. You can see there are mountains under the ocean that might have, if the water was lower, there would be land all the way going towards this Thule. Just about the same size as that piece of land that it shows on there where Dan and Naphtali went. So I think that's an interesting little thingy thing that we can show that may indicate that this is real, that there were a lot of people that lived over here at one time, and one particular tribe who was of the tribe of Israel that went to Thule, basically the North Pole. So, well, they didn't know the exact dimensions of it. Maybe it, if you look at it from the point of view that the ice forms a round area and the North Pole isn't all particularly land. But Greenland does look a lot like that. And I believe that is one area that maybe they eventually went to. Perhaps it wasn't even as cold as it is there now, or some, I don't know, it looks like the land masses have changed quite a bit. So we're going to look into this because we're going to show beyond a doubt. Look, friends, the history books now that we've had them, but we were never told we could read them. It's going to tell you where Dan went. It's got the codices that tell you about South America. Yeah, and it's got histories of Africa. And we're going to get into all of that in this series. But today we're going to finish off what we've been talking about Dan. And who the heck is Dan? And what is he doing at the North Pole? Now, if you look in Wikipedia, where it you write in Thule, and they tell you that Thule is the most northerly location mentioned in ancient Greek and Roman literature. Cartography, modern interpretations have included Orkney, Shetland, northern Scotland, the Isle of Saaremaa in Estonia, and Norwegian island of Smola. Thule, as a tile on the Carta Marina of 1539, where it is shown located to the northwest of the Orkney Islands, with a monster seen in 1537, a whale, Ballina, and an orca nearby. Orkney Island, I guess, is north of Scotland, up by Norway, little islands that are above Scotland and Britain. So they knew it was somewhere north. But you see, we couldn't find it because evidently the land masses have changed. The continents have changed. We saw that map the other day where, well, all these maps, when it shows you Chalaga in the United States, it doesn't show the Great Lakes in a lot of them, the earlier maps. So, in classical and medieval literature, Ultima, or Thule, furthermost, Thule, acquired a metaphorical meaning of any distant place located beyond the borders of the known world. By the late Middle Ages and early modern period, the Greco-Roman Thule was often identified with real Iceland or Greenland. Sometimes Ultima Thule was a Latin name for the Greenland. When Thule was used for Iceland, by the late 19th century, however, Thule was frequently identified with Norway. I believe it was identified with Norway up in, above Britain, mostly because, and I'll show you here, that these individuals of Dan that was populated that area were the Mongolians. They conquered all of, they're the Tartarians that ended up going down to Turkey, and that's the Tartarian kingdom there. They conquered Iraq, Persia, Syria, everything in that area. And the last things they conquered was Moscow. They went up into there, and Norway and Transylvania, I think, was about the last place that they conquered, and they stayed there. They are the 10 Germanic tribes, which I will prove is from the tribe of Dan. And evidently, Naphtali is with him, hitching a ride. And maybe some of the other tribes, perhaps. But for the most part, this is Dan's mark. This is Dan's tribe. But here's another really old map, and it shows, in that area, it shows this Arsareth, and it also shows certain names of the tribes there. It mentions, you can read Naphtali and Dan, just like the other map. So, it's not exactly the same. It's a different map. Other people wrote maps. But, yeah, it's got that same kind of Thule in the middle, that big North Pole area. And there's the, right by where we're in these histories that we're going to look at, it says that Dan went to this Arsareth, or Mongolia area. And see, that's where the Bering Strait is, and so they can easily cross over into America from there. And we're going to show that there were many of the tribes of Dan amongst the Native Americans as well. Now, I did get a couple of these pictures and some of these old maps from a guy named Ryan Zem. He's got a YouTube channel. He's gone into some of this. I haven't really watched his videos, but I was looking for a place where I could kind of get a shot of these maps. And I noticed he's got a bunch of, on his YouTube channel, he's got a bunch of pictures of these old cities. And he's done some investigation. Like I said, I haven't really watched a lot of his videos, so I don't know exactly what he believes or whatever, but he's got some good information about Tartaria. So, you might want to go check his channel out. But I'm telling you, what we're discovering here is the most mind-blowing revelation to date. So this history that I've discovered that is going to, I think, fill in a lot of the gaps, if not all of them. I mean, there's more stuff that probably we'll find. I know that there are other histories that we need to look into as well. But this is really a lot of info to help us get on the road to understanding what's really going on and where all these tribes went. Because this book is basically, I think it's a combination of history, mythological stuff, works of some particular guy that I think it's in the 1600s. He compiled all of this historical information. And it's been shown to be true. We've got other confirmations of it all. It's not like it's all made up. I mean, all the historians are obviously quoting from the same material. All the historians are basically quoting from the same material. We've got all the big historians and, Plato and people quoting from these chronologies. They're really, it's like the Irish chronology. It talks about Jeremiah. I mean, there's so much stuff that the secular world don't accept, or they didn't allow us to know that they were there, but the histories are there. I know there's Austrian chronicles that talk about all the history of man back to Adam. It mentions Adam and Abraham and tells you what tribe they're from. And I haven't got to that. I've been looking for that, but I seen it one time some years ago. I don't really read a lot of books, but the Lord brings these things to me and I thumb through it and I sort of absorb a lot of this information, and I got to put so much, information out there. I just want to know that it's credible. I want to see it. See? And then I just go and pray about it, and the Lord just sort of puts it all together for us. But you see, in these books, it's called The Purchase of the Pilgrims. The Purchase My Pilgrims. And there's about 4 or 5 books that pertain to the tribe of Dan, going up the Tartarians, basically, up in Asia, which is so much that we want to talk about and cover that he talks about there. But I also want to eventually, we're probably not going to get to any of this in this video. We're going to have to do several of these videos in the series. I don't know, maybe a whole bunch of videos, because it's just a gift that just keeps on giving with all this new source material that we can look at, these codices that are from Brazil and South America and Mexico, that we can determine a great deal of the history of the Native Americans and the Peruvians and Mayans and Aztecs and all that. And with what we're going to talk about today, we'll find out a lot about where some of the North American natives came from as well, and maybe where in the places like St. Louis and San Diego and San Francisco, these big cities and this architecture, what it's doing there. But there's also, he's got books where he tells the chronology and history of Asia. He's got others that tell the history and chronologies of Africa. I know a lot of you are waiting for that, because we talk a lot about the northern tribes up there, the Caucasians. And they get all the glory sometimes, it seems like. And you're like, what about us down here in Africa and over here in India? What about us? Well, you guys are very important. There's a lot of stuff we're going to get to. Okay? You're part of the tribes. We're all one people. We all come from Adam. We all came from Abraham. We all came from Jacob. But the tribe that went up north became this Dan tribe, and it's very important because he married into Japheth's line from Noah. Noah is Anu. Japheth is Poseidon. And Poseidon had 10 titans. And so there's a lot of confusion. This is what we want to cover this here. The Lord is just opening up and revealing so much. So in these records, it sounds like the 10 tribes went with Dan. Like, it's not Dan, just all the 10 tribes went north and became the Mongolians and Tartars and all this. It's all the 10 tribes. That's not true. There are 10 tribes in there, but they're not the 10 tribes of Israel. They are Israelites, but they are only 1 or 2 or maybe partial tribe all of Dan and some partial of Naphtali, obviously. I think maybe all of Naphtali went with him. And perhaps there are some of Reuben that went up in that way. I mean, they all come and go, but for the most part, it's Dan that goes up there. Other tribes went other places. And so we'll get to the tribes that went to Africa. And we'll get to the tribes that went to India and China and South America and all the other tribes. There's 12 different tribes, and they're all important. But don't be jealous of this group of people that went over the Caucasus Mountains and became the Mongolians and massacred the world and killed everybody, you know. Okay, don't be jealous, because Dan had to do his thing. The Lord knew what he was doing. The Lord's not happy with Dan. And the Lord's not happy with what they did. But we'll explain that. We'll talk about that. But he did some very bad things. And he took over the world because he's the beast. So Poseidon had 10 horns on the beast. They're the 10 kings. And they're not the 10 tribes of Israel. But they're the 10 kings that were of Poseidon, which is the Titans. Now, the German tribes have always said there are 10 Germanic tribes. This is what the Einführer wanted to bring back. The Futherland and the Motherland, or whatever they would call it. And they always talk about it in the New Age, like Elizabeth Clare Prophet and all of this ancient, you know, the Vril Society and the Skull and Bones and all of this secret Kabbalah and all of these people that seem to be so smart and apt of this wisdom. Well, they don't know anything about the wisdom. They stole it, right? They went down into, you know, Pythagoras went down to Egypt, and the pharaohs taught him some of what this ancient mystery was. Now, we don't know if they just didn't know all of it or they just decided not to tell him all. But Pythagoras learned what he could, and the knowledge has been lost. I mean, the idiots, they burned their libraries. Dan burned all the libraries. So he couldn't, you know, how are you going to keep this knowledge handed down if you don't have the books and the wisdom, and you just twist it and turn it upside down and you're evil? Well, they lost it. But it's going to be brought back. But Poseidon had these 10 titans. They're the 10 Germanic tribes. They may not even know who they really are, but I think a lot of these individual cult individuals kind of starting to know who they are, and they're very proud of it. They think, well, we're the dark side. Yay, we're the Goths. We're the vampires, and we're going to fulfill our purpose, and our deity Yahweh wants us to commit genocide, you know. Yeah, because Dan had the religion of Judaism. He took some Aaronic priests up to his temple, the Temple of Pan, or the Temple of Dan at the base of Mount Hermon. And so it's a demonic religion mixed with Judaism. It's this lower carnal commandments of Moses and Hammurabi. And they took it up there. And so Dan conquered Tyre, Laish in the Bible, in I think Judges 29 or something. And he renamed it to Sidan, or after himself, the Jordan and the Sidan. He went to Sweden. Well, we've been talking about all that. No, you know, the Danes, the Lundan and the Danube and all of that. Well, Dan also went all the way to Mongolia. Okay, he started off there like all the other Israelites when they went into captivity to Nineveh and the cities of the Medes and the Persians. And from that area up in the northern part of Assyria, over by Turkey, that's where all the 10 tribes were. They all scattered from that point, but each of the tribes were always separate, remember. Dan went from there, and it tells you the whole story in this chronology that we're going to get into, this purchase of my pilgrims. And it, you know, that was written in 1600 and something. And so Dan went all the way to Mongolia. And it talks about this kingdom that he built, which is, there was these 10 tribes, but only from Dan and Naphtali, it seems. But they called them 10 tribes. They broke up into 10, and it explains why they became 10 tribes. It even says that they were split up into some sort of 7 churches or something. It's really, really, really in depth. We might cover, I don't know if we'll get it covered in this video. We may have to do another video on Dan, because there's some really interesting things. It follows closely along with Revelation. It's like this huge expose that we finally now have clear understanding of what the book of Revelation is all talking about. The river Euphrates drying up for the kings of the east. The kings of the east is the Mongolians, and they're the tribe of Dan. They got to come back over the Euphrates River because they left from Turkey. They crossed the Euphrates by some miracle. Their God Yahweh, I guess, split the sea in half like Moses did with the Red Sea. And they went to Mongolia. Well, then there was this prophecy that said they'd come back and he would open the sea again. So this is what it, and this is something that is written in all the chronologies. We just haven't been really privy to it. But this is why this is so exciting, because there has been some kind of misinformation that's been a hindrance to really understanding all of this. And so in the past, people have read this. I mean, it's not like it's not been known. People have read it, but they're like, well, this doesn't make sense. Because if all the 10 tribes went there, see, then people get the idea, oh, okay. Just like a lot of people have done in the past, like Herbert Armstrong and others, the British Israelism, right? It's only the white people are Israel. And that's just not true. And there's been so much misunderstanding. So here we have 10 tribes from Dan. And people think, oh, well, then that's the 10 tribes of Israel. All the lost 10 tribes. But you see, that's not true. There's a lot to this. Part of it is, we've talked about this before, that our Heavenly Father's got 12, and then they got 12. Yahweh gets his own 12, right? He makes a duplicate. Everything we can do on the top of the wheel, right? There's 6 houses. Well, he got 6 houses on the bottom of the wheel. And a mommy and a dad, so there's 12 at the round table on the top and 12 at the bottom, right? And they got their own government. They got their own 72, right? The Sanhedrin that makes their decisions, and they have their own law. They got their own deity. They got it all. So people have been confused thinking, well, these 10 tribes must be the lost 10 tribes. No, that's their own 10 tribes. And this is what the Vril Society or the Germanic, Einführer and these occult, evil, wicked individuals have been trying to pull off. They pervert so much. They say that the Aryan race is just white people. And that's not true at all. Madame Blavatsky says that means all the peoples on the world of this age. We're not really a race. We're just all the peoples that are in this stage of the game. And we're called Aryans. And that comes from Orion. It has nothing to do with skin color. But also this 10 tribes, they call it the Great White Brotherhood. Well, so if all the 10 tribes are white, then it would be a white brotherhood. But guess what, friends? It is not the brotherhood of the Lord Jesus. When Jesus came, he says, I stood in the middle of the congregation. Well, it was a prophecy when he was Thoth, right? When he was writing these ancient wisdom. Well, it was a prophecy that was written to prophesy. When he was Thoth, he wrote this wisdom literature, and we've said this before, that most of the Ecclesiastes and Proverbs and Psalms, all this comes from ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, holy writings. And so Solomon built his temple in Luxor, Egypt. But so these are ancient verses. The ancient scriptures has been copied over. We've got a little Reader's Digest version, an excerpt we call the Bible today. It's just a part of all the ancient books that are lost. And they're going to all come back now. And we're going to reveal all the tribes and where they went. So, in Psalms, it tells you, sometimes it sounds like it's David speaking. Well, again, David is one of the types of this particular person who would be destined to come and be the king, we're all the son of David. If you're a king, you got to be son of David. So he's one of these kings. And David means divine. And all the names of all the kings were the divine names of the divine being, because they were the son of the divine being, the son of Anu, the son of Adam, and son of David. Also son of Ra, son of On. We've got Joseph that married the daughter of On, which is the priestly line. Well, the Pharaohs is the house of Ra. Ra, it's the same word. A lot of these words have come down to a spell differently because of the advancement of time in different languages. But there in the Psalms, originally written in the hieroglyphs, Thoth is saying, I will come and give you glory, my heavenly Father, in the great congregation, which is the congregation of mankind. And the 12 tribes, or all the tribes of the earth, and the 72 nations. That's why you've got 12 thrones that rules over Israel, the 12 tribes, and then you've got 72, which is the Sanhedrin. And what is that for? Well, that's the elders, and they rule the whole world, every tribe and tongue and nation. Deuteronomy 32:8, I think it is in there, talks about these 72, and that's why you have all the stuff that you hear in the occult about the 72 names of the divine being. Well, yeah, the divine being is a group of 72 individuals. They're the ancient patriarchs. But when they died, then people were replaced. They replaced that government. Okay? And so the king was the son of the divine being. King of kings and Lord of lords. So Dan, when he went off by himself and went up there to Mongolia, he started his own kingdom. And he decided he was king of kings and Lord of lords. Well, I guarantee that wasn't Jesus. He was out there killing everybody and raping and pillaging. And it says the 10 kings will hate the harlot and eat her flesh. And there is descriptions in this book, the chronology of Dan, that he was a cannibal and that he would kill his victims and then eat them and feed them their pearls and their jewels. He was ruthless. But there may be a purpose for that. We'll discuss that philosophically in another video. Why the Lord has allowed this evil Dan. Well, that's the lower kingdom, the law. Is there really anything wrong with the law? I mean, he executed the law. He was the avenger. Well, when man is not yet like the divine being, knowing the difference between good and evil, then man can be ruthless. And it's like a dog-eat-dog world. It's another kingdom. It's not the kingdom of our Lord. It's the kingdom of Antichrist. And he executes the law. Right? He's the executioner of the will of Yahweh, the law. And he even would go so far as to execute human beings. We are the only begotten. And we were condemned under the law, and we were all condemned to die on a cross, because cursed is anyone who dies upon a cross. And so, when Jesus died, he said, now I want you to take up your cross and follow me. So this is all illustrative of the fact that we all came into the world, we had a marriage, and we said, yes, we will do this, and we signed a contract, and now it's death till you part. This is the explanation of this world that we live in. The carnal, hard world that we're living in, it with a hard taskmaster, and the school that leads to Christ. The school master that leads us to Christ. Because once we are of age, we're heirs, and we got the whole thing. So there's a lot of duplication. You'll find that there's a city that they build, the one with the 28 million people. It says on the maps that the city that Dan built had 28 million people. That's as large as any city we have on the earth today. It seems like the earth had a lot of people in it. And they had great civilization. And I think they had technology and lights and electricity and all of that. And I think that there's a group of people that did a reset in around the year 1914 with the war. And they stole all that information. We've covered a little of that in some of the other videos. We're going to get into that in the next coming videos. But Dan created his own government. So he had 12 that sat on a council. And then he had... he split his kingdom up into different regions, and there were 10 tribes that made the, so Dan had 10 kids, basically, and they were the 10 tribes. So this is going to help us a lot, and I want to fully cover Dan before we go to Africa and South America and different places. So, for those of you who are looking forward to knowing your heritage, if you might be from India or China or Africa or somewhere, stay tuned. We're going to be doing some videos. But we're going to fully go through who this Dan is because he's the one ruling the world and he's bad. Okay, he's a bad guy. He doesn't have an inheritance in Revelation. So, I also want to point out that out of 12 tribes, there isn't just one tribe that's white. And there isn't just, bad people amongst white races. There are also bad people amongst brown people. There are bad black people. There are bad Chinese people. And there are bad white people. But for some reason, the tribe that went cuckoo and possessed of Satan ended up being a particular tribe that was white. And today they've got all this racist stuff going on in this belief system that they're the chosen. And this is the teachings of Yahweh. See? So this is going to help us understand why Yahweh being, thinking his people are chosen, but then if they're all the nations, what is he talking about? Well, it's the Judeans that teach this chosen race thing, right? All the Torah that didn't come from our Heavenly Father. It came from Babylon when they went down and they were captive to Babylon, and they brought these lower teachings, these carnal commandments, and this lower priesthood. And it was a veiling of the real truth, the opposite of the light, the darkness, the shadows, and it's the kingdom of this world, and the deity of this world rules over them. So they've got their own demonic crew that run the world, the elemental spirits, the principalities, powers, dominions, and authorities. That word principality is the word archon. And the demiurge, Yaldabaoth, or Yahweh, ruled over them. And they worship their deity with glee. And they believe in their laws. They believe in their vengeance. Right? Got to have law and order. So, we're going to cover them till we get to a place where we understand what's going on. Now, we're going to trace Dan's tribe. He gets around, but this is the area, if you look at that picture, that's the area kind of like Mongolia, and there's the Bering Strait. So on the right side of the screen, that's Alaska, that's America. So you can see all the names there and all their places they lived and their cities. Like I said, there's a city that they built. It was a New Jerusalem. It's got 3 gates on the north and 3 on the south. It's a complete duplicate of the city of the New Jerusalem that's in the book of Revelation. And we're going to find out that they made these cities wherever they would go. Whatever tribe would go, they would make the New Jerusalem. So when they went back to Turkey, the Tartarian area, or the original Tartarian area, or well, I guess the original area was Mongolia, but they came back down and took over the area around Turkey and called that Tartaria. And so, in that country, they built a New Jerusalem, and that's the present-day Istanbul. Now, the history of Istanbul is very confusing for a lot of people, because they go and they say, wait a minute, these people believe that their city's called Jerusalem. It's called Jerusalem, and sometimes it's called the New Jerusalem. And this goes back into their history way back. You go to Istanbul today and talk about this, and people know what you're talking about. We don't know about this over here in America. We don't hear about this in Europe maybe so much, but they do know about this. Their city was called the New Jerusalem. Okay, but there were other New Jerusalems. We find that there is a Jerusalem in Africa, and there are Israeli tribes of Israel that are in Africa. And there is a New Jerusalem in America. And I think there may be 2 of them. And so wherever you see a river, like the Euphrates or the Tigris or the Ganges or the Mississippi, you're going to have a New Jerusalem. So you look in Palestine, the headwaters of the Jordan comes from Mount Hermon. That's the mountain in the north, the kingdom of the Lord Zion. And the water runs down from the mountain, and Jerusalem's at the southern end. Okay, so where the water runs into the Gulf, that would be the Jerusalem. So where the Mississippi runs into the Gulf of Mexico, you have New Orleans. Or, it's not an old or city of light, Uru, Uru Salem, city of light and peace, but it's an old city being made new, Orleans, a new Or. So the new city of light, or a new city of Or, was there. Now, the Book of Mormon also talks about a city of Jerusalem that the Lamanites ended up making and having. Now, the Lamanites were the bad Native Americans, and then there were the Nephites with the good ones. The Nephites were descendants from a group of Israelites that came over in 600 BC. But there were some Lamanites that had mixed with some other tribes that had been here that came over at different times. So the Book of Mormon is well aware that there were different migrations. So that even in North America, there were different tribes that in, when the Book of Mormon was, the days of that the Book of Mormon is talking about, some like 600 BC all the way up to 500 AD was the last of that history. But during that time, there were various tribes that were still here, some of which went back thousands of years, and others that had just recently arrived here. The Lamanites had conquered an area, and they built a city called Jerusalem. Now, it may have been their New Jerusalem. And it was in an area south, and I would suspect that it's down there by New Orleans. But there is another city that's kind of like a New Jerusalem that Joseph Smith talked about as Zara. And there's that Zara, right? From the line of Caesar or Osiris, Lazarus, and that's from Zerah, the son of Judah. So Zarahemla was also a big metropolis of that time. Probably somewhere near, I don't know, just basically around St. Louis area. But let me show you here one of the ways that certain individuals here in North America were not all of tribes that were from the good side. Now, I'm sure there are good people that go back to Dan. I don't think everybody who's of a tribe of Dan, anybody who's going to be of the tribe of Dan, if he could prove that your blood goes all the way back to Dan, I don't think you'd be able to trace it, because the Lord probably has ended that line. And if you're going to get your blessing, like all of us, we're going to get our blessing in Christ. He is that seed as of one, not as of many. But as it says, and we've covered this before, Shem shall dwell in Japheth's house. So Japheth doesn't really get much of a blessing. All the blessings went to Jacob's children, and we all got the blessing in Joseph, who will be a multitude of nations. All the nations get their blessing through Joseph. So it doesn't matter if you were specifically of the tribe of Dan or any other tribe. These are just kind of symbols, and the Lord used certain peoples for certain things. But all of us have probably been incarnated into the world in various tribes. We've lived many lives, and we have to go through all of them, right? If there are certain characteristics or aspects or character that we need to learn, and sometimes we have to go from the lower to the higher, and we have to experience all of these things. We went through the fish, the bird, the mammal, the man, and we went through the whole, all the way around through every house. Every time we're born in a different house to experience different things, a different tribe. So all of us get our genetics from Abraham and from Noah and from Adam. But these individuals, then, some of them did come from Dan, crossed the Bering Strait, as you can see here, and they went down, and you can see the names in this map. They tell you that the Tartarians went into America. You can see names, and it says Tartaria on there. Shows you tents, and below that little area of tents, you see right there, you see those little animals. Those are buffalo. Now, I wouldn't have known it because I can't really tell. But yeah, those are supposed to be crude drawings of buffalo. But that location is supposed to be where Omaha is today. And So this map is saying that there was a big settlement near Omaha, Nebraska. Well, I want to show you a picture. It's in 1898. There's a picture of Omaha, Nebraska. And you tell me if you ever in your life was ever told that Omaha, Nebraska looked like this in 1898. Really? Take a real good look at that. Look at the statues. That's a very much akin to that city we looked at the other day, Chicago. Magnificent, the architecture. What, did they build a World's Fair there and then burn it down the next day? I mean, what is this? The same thing was in St. Louis. You see these ornate buildings and architecture and the baptismal font and the capitoliums and all of the statues and the obelisks and all of it in the whole ball of wax. There's no way that in Omaha, Nebraska in 1898 there was a city like that we somehow built. And why would we build this old architecture there anyway? And how come nobody's ever heard about this? Well, because they burned all these cities down. They'd have a World Fair, claim they built it out of sticks and plaster, and then burned it down the next day. And everybody, I guess they believed it. Well, there's a reason why they got away with it. Yeah, at this juncture, let me just show you something. Because this, I think we need to see this. How they pulled this off. It's going to be kind of something we need to know because they're trying to pull it off again right now. We're all basically going to be going through this all over again. And how are they going to pull it off? Well, take a look at this. So, you see that building? How about that one? Those are massive. Insane asylums. Lunatic. They called them lunatic asylums. State hospitals. They still got these today. But a lot of this architecture goes back to the, beginning of the 20th century in 1900 or even in 1800s. They had thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people put away in these insane asylums. And these buildings are massive. Now, why would they build this kind of architecture, these huge, massive buildings and stick all these people in there? Well, that is a whole video program to itself that I will probably cover in more depth as we go along. But let me just tell you, suffice it to say, the ones that didn't get along during the reset of 1914, World War I was a big reset. They got rid of the history, and a lot of people didn't want to cover it up. A lot of people say, hey, what's going on here? I ain't going to agree to that. And they, oh, really? You don't agree to that, huh? Well, you must be a lunatic. Even today, that word lunatic doesn't mean you're crazy. It means that you are what we don't like. You're a bad guy. Like today we say that you're not allowed to say the word retarded. Okay, well, you see, lunatic, that's the real bad word that they go around saying all the time, and they're pointing their finger at you because you don't go along with the program. So you're a lunatic, and they'll just take you away. Put you in a straitjacket. Oh man, the kinds of things that mankind has done to their fellow man is literally evil. And any of you people out there that's participating in this, if you don't quit right now and repent on your knees, you are not going with the Lord Jesus when he comes. Now, what are these buildings, these magnificent buildings? What is the corresponding thing that we have today? Because, we're going through another reset. And, there's going to be a lot of people that don't want to go along with the program. Where are they taking us? Oh, look at this. I'll be a diddly dang dong if they ain't always been up to something. I don't know, for years I've been driving by, these big cities, and there's all these skyscrapers, and like, what are those big buildings? Oh, that's the insurance building. Oh, that tallest one's a bank. Or there's all this, but oh, look at this over here on the other side of town. It's almost as big as downtown. It's as big a hospital complex. There's like thousands of people being wheeled in and wheeled out, and, they're inpatient care, and different kinds of hospitals, right? For your mind and body and soul. Oh boy, they got something for everybody. And the pharma, and we won't even go into it because we're not allowed to. I'm telling you, friends, this is all a big, man, I wish I could tell you what it is, but they probably wouldn't like it very much. So I would just ask you to use your imagination, my friends, because these buildings here, I know a lot of you think, well, what are you talking about, Dave? If we get sick, we've got to go to the, DOC. Yeah, DOR. Well, maybe, if we lived right, we wouldn't be so sick all the time. And most of the reason why we're sick is because of what they're feeding us. And, well, I probably can't go into it here very much, but this tribe of DAN, one of the ways that they would go and wipe out and massacre all the way from China to Russia to Europe, and they just massacred everybody all the way to America, is with the pestilence and the plague. Oh, I know. They didn't really learn any new tricks. It's just the same old tricks they've been playing all along. And now we're about to go through a reset, like they already pulled off about 200 years ago. Only this is the final reset. It's been prophesied. They lose. All right? The Lord Jesus is coming. Oh, buddy, thank you, Lord Jesus. And he's going to put them all in their place. And this is going to be the restoration of all the tribes. Oh, glory. It's coming. It's coming, friends. They're going to play out this big drama in one big fail. So, Dan, was on that white horse. Yeah, we'll tell you more about that tomorrow in Revelation chapter 6. And he's got a bow, and it's a toxin bow, and that's how he fights his battles. He kind of fights dirty. Old Caesar, Julius Caesar, told you about him. These barbarians is what he called them. These Helvetii, right up there. And yeah, they wrote about him. Caesar wrote about these people. Alexander the Great wrote about these people. Said they were beasts and evil and wicked. And they went and built the wall of China, to try and keep them out of there. Well, according to the story in this Purchase My Pilgrims, or whatever that book's called, that we're going to be talking about here, that's got all the history to Africa and Mayans and China and all this thing, and in that book it says that Dan finally went up to Russia and Norway, and then to Transylvania. That was the last place. Kind of right around in there is where he stopped his conquering and stayed and rested his little weary soul. He became the great vampire, and all of his descendants are Vladimirs and Avinskis and Auskis and Uskis and all of this, if you know what I mean. So, I guess we'll probably just leave it there, because we probably can't say a whole lot more about that subject. But tomorrow, we're going to do another one on this series. We got so many more things to tell you about. Maybe we'll get into how it all interprets, or gives us an interpretation, so we say, of the book of Revelation that is just going to blow your mind. And how that fits in with the actual time of the end that we're living in, and the great day of Armageddon that's looming around the corner. I'm going to go ahead and go, friends. Man, I hope you have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.